All right, guys. So let's do this. We have some people signing on to YouTube. I just want to say welcome tonight. And here's what we thought we would do tonight. So actually, tonight was Diana's idea. And Diana stuffs her mouth and is going, wait, what did I do? But no, she thought it would be good to gather people, and then we had the idea to do it on the phone thing, on the live, because so many people are still sort of questioning, whether to get together or not, because we have a lot of supporters of our ministry who are all over the United States and the world. And so, but her thought was to kind of let you guys know kind of how this came to be, more or less. I mean, in some ways, our team has been talking and thinking about the Hope Ranch for some time, but we sort of, sprung it on you guys in some ways a couple of months ago. And so I just wanted to sort of give you a little bit of background and paint some of the vision of where we're going in what we see going in our ministry and sort of the things that we're passionate about. And I know that many of you who have been part of our ministry in one way or the other, and it's been fun even tonight hearing from people that have known us for some time and others who I've never met before who showed up tonight. And I know there were people who were intending to come who didn't show up, but they'll be watching this later. So at any point, I think this video hopefully will just help you as we're recording this, but also for you guys who came, thank you for coming. We're excited in a minute to show you a tour of the house. The things that we were gonna, some of the construction stuff that we're planning on the house has been done. And so really that's the idea. So for the next few minutes, I thought I'd just tell you a little bit of the story of how I ended up doing the ministry that I'm in. And honestly, just this week I had an interview on a podcast, and Colin Lambert, who has been a dear friend who used to be at Moody, who now has his own podcast show. And he had asked me, like, one of the questions was, did you ever think you'd be doing when you felt God calling you to ministry? Did you ever see, sort of what you'd be doing now? And honestly, no, nothing that we're doing now I thought I'd be doing. Some of the things we're doing now I thought I'd be doing, but really the ministry's taken on a shape that only God could have predicted. And any of you who have been walking with the Lord for some time, and any of you who have had sort of ideas and dreams for God can attest to that. Like, you step in kind of having all of these thoughts, here's what I want to do, God, and sort of sensing what God wants to do through you. But as your life plays out, you kind of look back and go, wow, I didn't see that. And so we're here standing now in the Hope Ranch, and I can honestly admit, like, I'm not sure I could have predicted that we would be here now. I would have predicted that Sam would be singing worship songs all night. That I could have predicted. And those of you who are not here live missed the chance of hearing him run our worship songs tonight. And he actually, and Sam, I don't know if you're still up for it when I finish. Maybe you can do a little song. He had asked me if he could sing a song for everybody, so maybe we can do that later. But anyway, my story in ministry started about 2000. And in the year 2000, everybody was worried about Y2K. I was overcoming sort of a crisis with God where I was trying to understand what happened in my life. For years, I had thought that I would, I thought I might be a missionary doctor. I was studying medicine. I had already given my life to the Lord and dedicated my life to serve Him. And so really, everything I was doing, I thought I was doing for God. And then my personal life hit sort of a shambles. I was engaged, God broke the engagement 2 weeks before the wedding, but then had another person I thought I would end up marrying. And any of you who have read my most recent book, Fractured Faith, are familiar with that story because I talk about it in there. And so I started my fellowship in pediatric ER really in upheavals personally. And so I was sort of living very normally on the outside, but sort of grieving some losses on the inside. But it was in that season of brokenness that God allowed me, honestly, in hindsight, it was like an invitation to teach His Word. And I felt in that season, it was like God was taking away one thing, but replacing it with something that at that time I felt like I just fell in love with teaching the Bible. Like, it was just what I was meant to do. And in that season, I felt called to become a Bible teacher, whatever that meant. Like, at the time, there were a couple of verses that God impressed on my heart that I felt were my calling to serve God in Bible teaching. And they're random verses. One was from Acts chapter 13. And I remember just seeking the Lord and fasting and praying. And I don't fast a lot. Our Lebanese heritage is very food oriented, so fasting is hard for me. But in general, I remember fasting for 3 days. I had read like Stormy O'Martian, had a book on fasting. And in that season, God gave me that verse in Acts 13 where Paul and Barnabas were separated unto the gospel. And literally like the next week, I was in my quiet time also seeking God and praying. And He gave me Romans 1:1, which uses that same word of separated unto the gospel. And I felt like my calling in ministry was to teach the Bible. That I've not deviated from that. I feel like that has always been and has continued to be my primary calling. I love God's Word. I love to teach it. but the road to how it's played out has taken me by surprise. And so, hills and valleys. And so right after that sort of high of, okay, here's what God wants me to do, came to Chicago, hit some valleys, wrote a couple of books about it, but in the season ended up at a church that sort of fueled the teaching ministry that God was clear. Bonnie's here. She was my assistant, my first person who started taking the material that we were teaching and put it in some format of actual books. And so those studies are still available online. We had a website that we started growing at the time. In 2010, I had the foresight, and again, I've always been driven by sort of a sense, really, even people go, what do you think God's doing? I get these, and I hate to, because it sounds so voodoo, and I'm not voodoo, but like this intuition. It was like I knew I should establish a 501c3. Honestly, naively, I thought my books would be bestsellers, I'd make a lot of money, and I'd have to account it to the Lord. And then I needed a 501c3 because God doesn't just honor people with like financial reward without some purpose. And I've always believed that. Like, if God blesses you, it's to bless others. And so to me, setting up the 501c3 was sort of that. It was like saying, okay, God, I foresee that you could do something here in the teaching ministry, the Bible teaching ministry. And so I want to be ready for it. So I want to build a house, and then you can do what you need to do. And so starting the 501c3 was with that in mind. It was not initially started with any effort to do work with the Lebanese or the Syrians, or I was doing a lot of medical mission work. I went to I've been to a few places, Tanzania, Benin. I've been to a few places in Africa, much in South America and in Central America. Really, I had a sort of wanderer spirit and wanted to use my medical skills to serve the Lord. But in that season, when things sort of started, so things were sort of following the path. Other than I didn't sell any books, so I didn't make millions writing books. I got my first, I think we've gotten 2 royalty checks today. I got the second one, $300. 3 is the third. Okay, today's was the highest, $300. That's my first royalty check from Thrive 2013. So if y'all ever wonder, like, how do people make a living in books? That's, if I were living on my book income, I would be living in somebody's basement. So, I couldn't even do that. I'll be back home at my mom's. So it would be a disaster. But what are we now? 2021. So maybe in 2050 I'll get into the $1,000 range. But so clearly God had other plans. But I was still sort of in that lane of I'm teaching the Bible, I'm passionate about it, and I could see God growing it. And so a lot of the language of our ministry, so the ministry initially was called Power at Work, I believe, and it was based, Diana and I actually changed the name after a brainstorming session in her kitchen, her old house in Mount Prospect, to Living with Power, because a lot of people, when we started a website called Power at Work, they thought it was something to do with work, like, oh, you're a professional ministry thing, and we're like, no, it's from Ephesians 3:20. God is going to do above and beyond what you could ask or think, according to the power at work in you. And I was like, power at work, that's everybody show that, right? And so we changed it to Living with Power, because the energy and intensity, and of course, I wasn't even thinking that it matched who I am. But what does that even mean, like living with power, right? And so over the years, really, it's come to mean to us hope really. And so a lot of the work that I did on messaging over the years with a variety of different people kind of boiled down, like my mission statement in life is to urge people to hope in God. And so, you kind of go, well, how does hope connect with power? Well, as long as your hope is alive, you're powerful, right? I mean, the Christian who loses hope is in despair. The Christian who has hope is fueled with power, the joy of expecting that God is going to do something above and beyond what you ask or think. And so much of what we believe is rooted in this hope that we have in a Savior that we've never seen, but we all truly, genuinely know and believe. And so ironically, so much of the internal battle that I face in my life is over this hope. Like, I think Satan wants to steal the hope away, but it's what keeps us going. Like, there's this, what if God shows up? Think about what if. Think about all the areas in your life that you've prayed about for years, and you go, man, I've given up on. And then you're like, but what if? That's hope. It's like this, God could show up at any point. And so hope has become a big sort of focus and language that we use in our ministry, because it fuels what we do. We want to instill hope in people. Well, where do you find that hope? Well, we know it's in Jesus. How do you know the Lord? Well, it's in His Word. And so that original sort of sentence that I created, I remember coming up with this sentence, like biblical truth for everyday life. I believe that's how you find hope, is biblical truth for everyday life. And so so much of this work of, as I practiced medicine and I was still sort of growing my understanding of how to even have mission and vision. Man, it took me like 5 years to understand the difference between mission and vision. I probably still can't verbalize, all these things that they tell you to do in business. Like I have an MBA and I can tell you I'm not a business person. I'm not. I'm just a woman who met the Lord years ago and who, I hate to use it, but fell in love with Jesus. I mean, it sounds so, like, when you say it sounds like, Hollywood, but I think anyone who has a relationship with Jesus understands that. Like, I have a deep love for Jesus, and my vision for ministry has been to pursue him wherever that goes. It's never been about just being a Bible teacher or just starting a nonprofit or just writing books. It's been about following him, so that if tomorrow he says, Lina, I want you to be a plumber, I might surprise you and say, guys, now I'm going to go do plumbing. You might go, well, that's not with your mission statement. Well, I'm going to be a hope-filled plumber, right? I just think, like, sometimes there's such an intensity in our world and our Christian culture now to step into these lines of structure. Everybody wants to understand what you're doing, and really, it's not that complicated. There's a God who sent his son Jesus to die for us, and when I had that sense in my heart that he wasn't about everyone else, he was about me. Like, there was a personal thing happening. It just changed the course of my life, so that now I'll do anything for Jesus. And I think the tension sometimes is we develop these expectations in life and we start sort of fighting these resentments or disappointments. But when you take all the noise apart, it goes back to that lane. And so as I was walking that lane, and again, from the outside, things were going well for a while where I was teaching the Bible, writing Bible studies. Really, it felt like what I thought God was going to do, he was doing. So, yay, God, right? We're all like, God is so good. Romans 8:28. We all have our little things that we think, us as the red cardinals. There's a red cardinal. God's happy with me today, right? But then I hit a pit stop, and that pit stop came in a very unexpected form. I left my church, and sort of now, the hardest thing about leaving my church was that I had built this idea of ministry that was so tied to doing a certain thing in a certain lane that it didn't occur to me that God might use us elsewhere, and that God might still be able to build his kingdom through us. In fact, if anything, I think I had narrowed down the concept of what I could do in personal ministry because I was so just boxed into a zone that was what I knew. And so that year I left was the year that Moody Radio offered me to do Today's Single Christian. And it was like a lifeline from the Lord to just, honestly, that to me was just a gift, him saying, you're not out. Because I felt I was out. I felt like I was no longer in the game, I guess, if you were going to use that language. And so it was really a gift from God. And the second thing that happened is we started going to Lebanon in 2015. I left Harvest 2013, we started going 2015. And the reason I could go is that I was no longer spread so thin between work and ER and writing and blogging and podcasting, so that now there was a window to go because I wasn't in this box that I had put myself in. So again, it worked out that Romans 8:28 is true. All things do work together for good. You just don't quite know where it's going. And so that year we started going to Lebanon. I still at that time couldn't have predicted how God would use us with the Syrian refugees. I just knew that there was people who needed hope desperately. And I had some connection to that world, being Lebanese and speaking the language and having a skill, the medical skill. And the more we showed up, and I think so much of personal ministry is that you show up and God just opens doors. And so we went from year 1 to year 3. We started doing mission trips week and week and week after week. We'd go like 4 weeks a year. And then the third year, I got asked to support some families, which I'll tell you that, since we have time, and I think you guys on YouTube were here till 7:30, so I could tell you the detailed version, but how faithless I was, just to give you some sense of, like, it's so funny, because I think in our brains and in our prayer times and in our journaling, we have faith this high, but then life hits, and then you're kind of like going, wait, God wants me to do what? And like you panic. And so there's sort of that gap always between what you see God moving you towards and then stepping into it, right? And I remember, like, the first time Nazif, the pastor in Lebanon, approached me, he was like, I literally was, my suitcase, I was on my way to leave the town to go to the airport to come back home. And he stops me and says, Lina, I've been meaning to talk to you all week. And he says, have you ever considered helping us support some of the Syrian refugee families who are being persecuted because they've received Jesus, and now they're kicking them out of the tents, they have nowhere to live? And he goes, I want to challenge you to take on 5 families. That was how our work in the Middle East started, besides the medical trips that, we didn't do. you take care of thousands of people, you come home, you're done. That was the first time when we started investing in the culture. And I said, wait, what? And he said, yeah, there's a family, for example, they just have been trusting Jesus and they're vocal about their faith and they kick them out and they have nowhere to go. And we sat, and I remember just saying, okay, let the cab wait for a minute. We sat down and we I said, well, what would it look like to, and we made some numbers, what the cost would be. And we came up with a number, $200 would be enough to support a family every month. And so in my little faithless mind, I thought, I could take a 5 family. I thought, if nobody, we had a 501c3, we had a nonprofit. People were supporting us to do 1 week of mission trips, but I thought in my head, 200 times 5 is 1,000. So I thought, worst case, if nobody else shows up, I could do that. I was working telehealth. I knew I could make extra money. God had given me a venue with making money. But you see, that's the human way, right? That's how little faith I thought. I was like, okay, worst case, I'll do it. So I come home, and on the plane, I dropped a couple of thoughts, emails. Maybe I don't remember, Irina, how I plopped that out. All my ideas are like, hey, Irina, here's what I think we should do. And then she actually makes it work. But within a week of us putting out that email, we had more. We supported, even within a couple of months, we had like 20 families. Like it was like, God didn't need me. Like it was like, you were just a tool, the instrument. Like he didn't even need me, right? And so we took on 22 families, and of course Nazih, every time I go to Lebanon, he had another idea. And so he was really a critical person to get our work in the Middle East going. And so that and it made sense then. Again, God had given me the foresight to start a 501c3, but it wasn't so that I could make a lot of money selling books. It was because there was a work for people who are coming to know him, who are continuing, there's a revival happening in Lebanon now, who need help. And so he foresaw before the creation of the world that there would be people in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, people all over the United States who would hear about it and whose hearts would be stirred. So that now, we're only 5 years into our work. We started with the Syrian refugees, now we're helping the Lebanese, and we're able to help over $100,000. Last year, I think we were at $150,000 we gave. We're no one. I don't mean it like, it's me and Irina and Diana. Like Diana just came on a year ago. Like I have a full-time job still as a doctor. Irina's our only staff. Like, we're no one in the picture of the world. We have not sold best-selling books. Like, I speak at a few conferences. I'm occasionally on radio. People can't even pronounce my name. And yet, God has seen fit to raise up all of y'all. Many of you guys who are here have supported us, if not in finances, in prayer, in friendship. And so God has arranged this thing that is bigger than us and is continuing to do so. So that starts going, and I'm like, I don't know where that's from. Like, I thought I was going to be a Bible teacher. In fact, I went to Lebanon thinking I'm going to just go be a Bible teacher in Arabic because the American church didn't want me. I might as well just go find a home in Lebanon. They didn't want me either, teaching the Bible over there. I did a conference, they liked me, but it's funny, I tell you, when I first went to Lebanon, I remember sitting with the president of a Bible Institute there, very complimentary and very strict, and I'm thinking like, I've got 2 books, I'm from the U.S., I've been teaching the Bible, like, hey, you guys, aren't you interested in that? And I could tell from the second I sat in that office, like, he had no interest in me to be there. And I was like, well, that was like an ego booster, like, not at all. And so, but that meeting led to the meeting with the publisher in Lebanon, because I felt like there was no interest there. I was smart enough, intuitive enough to tell that. So I didn't even waste my books on him. I ended up asking him about a publishing house in Lebanon, if he knew anyone. And it turns out there was a lady, the house as far as the pond here. He's like, you see that building there? That's the biggest publishing house in the Christian world in the Middle East. And he introduces me to Sausan. Sausan is a dear friend now. She's gotten 3 of our books in Arabic. That was another step of faith. When we came back, after that, we needed to raise funds to get them in Arabic. That's how books get published in other languages, unless you're a best-selling author and everybody's clamoring to get you translated. We had to get our own books translated. And God has used them immensely in the Arab world, but we had to raise the money. And that was the beginning of sort of this world of fundraising, this world of stepping out in even more faith. Because it's a change of way of being a doctor who's self-supported, who is able to pay for certain things, and now to tell people, man, listen, you can be a part of this and understand, sort of the ask has always been sort of a challenge, because it's humbling to say, man, I can't do this on my own. I know it's an opportunity to partner. I get it. I get all of the, touchy-feely reasons of why people want to, but it's still, for a person who's not used to asking, I'm Lebanese too, like we always pay the bill, like, right? That we fight over it. Like, this is how we function. Like you're not going to pay, I'm going to pay. And so to ask has been a very new world for me. But that was the first, like, when we started entering those places where where God had in mind things that we couldn't accomplish on our own, and then God was just bringing people along, people that, like even tonight, I've met people like, wait, how did you hear about us? Like, just crazy stories. Dennis, I mean, I'm looking at you, how did you even, how did you end up in a primarily women's Bible teacher, right? I mean, you think about it, like it's crazy how God works, and yet there's a divine story happening. And so we move. So how do you come to the ranch? And so I get into the last few years. So we get this thing going in the Middle East. Things continue to grow, and then right before COVID hits, I start this. COVID was sort of an interesting time. Many of us love or hate COVID. I love the isolation. I'm not gonna lie. I work out of my house. I love it. I don't miss the ER. I left the ER 5 years ago, and I work out of my house. And I love being alone. And I love the peace of that time with God. And it was in that season that God sort of intersected sort of this part of leaving the church. I never dealt with the emotions of that. And so it was around COVID time when I started really kind of looking at that. There was a lot of factors that led to why the timing was, but some of it had to do with the writing of the book. I think it wasn't accidental. I'm writing a book that comes out in a week on that topic. Wrote it, not writing, thank God. Done. But basically, it was in that season that I started to really see, and I was listening to teachers like Pete Scazzaro, who teach us a lot about this, reading some authors that Dark Night of the Soul, and some of them more contemplative. I really believe this. Funny, you think about that. So many of our church forefathers were contemplative. I think about A.W. Tozer as an example. Like, I think we can sometimes think, what does that mean, contemplative? Like, I think people who took time with God, who wrote and spoke, and you could tell, like you read Tozer and you go, man, this guy, I don't know what you call him, but he was contemplative. And the things, Oswald Chambers is another character. These are very conservative Bible teachers, but they're contemplative, and that what comes out of them comes from a well that is different than the world. You can hear it, you can see it. They speak, and you go, man, there's something about them. How did they come up with these ideas? They're not caught up with the language of the world. Well, the problem is that you've got a stream going down that's sucking you down, the culture. We were just talking about that tonight. I mean, all of the issues, everybody wants to, and more so now in 2021 with social media, but the Christian who is to fight that, the Christian that can step away from that stream and say, man, I'm going to take time to listen to God. And it doesn't happen without intention. It does not happen accidentally. And that's sort of the root of what I started dreaming about in terms of a retreat center. I remember thinking about sort of, man, wouldn't it be great? And I honestly, part of me wanted to leave Chicago because we were masked. And I was looking at Tennessee at the time, and I was like, I want to move out of the States. The taxes are high. We got to wear masks. I got to go somewhere where it's more like free. And so I started looking at places in Tennessee, and I was like, looking at these places, they're like 80 acres, and they're expensive. And I was trying to think through it, and I was like, God, is this from me or is this from you? And battled that for a while. And after about a year of that, and in the meantime, I had the opportunity, like when I was in COVID alone, I wasn't with 16 kids, a husband, it was me. Like, I could really be silence and solitude. Whereas I know for many people who were in COVID, it was like the worst time because it was like you had no time. But I could see the value of introspection, of being in the Word. And so as I was thinking with, and praying with the Lord, there came a point where I decided, no, I can't do this. It's too expensive because who was going to fund it? I mean, I was like, I looked at how much cash flow I had, and I was like, I just can't do it. It's too much. And I felt stressed about it. And so I remember leaving it to God and saying, God, I'm done. It's yours. I was wrong. You know what? I had this idea. It's great. I grew up at camp. In fact, my first deep encounter with God happened at camp. And so always that camp background story was always in my heart. And I remember just saying, I'm done. And the next morning, I'm not even joking you, I took a picture of the email just to read it. I remember it was so funny. Literally the next morning, I don't know this woman. I still haven't met her. I get this email from a woman that says, Hi, Lina. Do you know of any Christian retreat places that allow quiet time, but maybe some mentoring or talking as well? This year has rocked me. I've reached out to others and done therapy. In short, I've done all I know how to do. For some reason, this idea came to mind, and so did you. I'm not sure why. We don't know each other, but I've been listening to your messages since you started at the church. I respect your directness, truth-telling, and your hopeful energy. Hope. There it is again. And I'm telling you guys, it was like God just was like, Lina, you're not wrong in the dream, but just leave it here, just stay, lean in it. Like, I want it done yesterday. I want it done, and he's like, just, so it gave me hope to say, all right, okay, maybe I was wrong. Like, this woman described exactly what I had in mind. And so I started dreaming about it with the team now. I told Diana and Irina, they came to my house for a meeting, and I was like, guys, this is a crazy idea. I don't even know how to bring this up, but I was like, let me redo this email, and blah, blah, blah. And they were like, oh, okay, well, let's pray about it. And I was like, oh, huh? I was like, I guess I didn't think about that. And so we started praying about it, and still, I didn't feel like it would happen then, because it was a big financial stretch. And I also think about everything. I'm an overthinker, all of it. I was like, but people think we do global, and now where's this going to fit, and how, all the details of, if there's like, if people like have 1 through 100, I have 1 through 500 reasons why something's not going to work. Like I am that person. But I just we were praying, and then I thought, well, maybe God just wants it in a couple of years. And I started thinking about how I could save money to have a down payment, and then on a whim, the Lord put something in our face in a very miraculous way. I was scrolling through Facebook, and someone had put, it was just a long story, but basically, someone had seen this place and posted pictures, and no, there was no pictures, and there's actually no pictures. It was somebody had said they're thinking about buying a place in Barrington that's 5 acres, had a little pond, horses, and I remember reading the description, and I thought, they're painting the picture of what I want. And so I went to Realtor, put in the parameters of 5 acres in Barrington, and there were like 2 places, and clearly one had a pond, one didn't. So I was like, oh, Sherlock Holmes here. and I wasn't even in town, and I told Diana and Rafi to come and look at it. And they FaceTimed me while they were looking at it, and I just knew, like, this was the place. And the price was way below anything I had been looking at in Tennessee. And so we took the step of faith. And after I came back to do the walkthrough, it was so funny because it was like you'll see when we go in the house how every little detail is tended by the Lord. We'll show you where the eating room will be, but I remember when we came for the showing, now we put the offer, it was accepted, and I was like, God, if you want this, you prayed, and God gave us and it was like exactly what we asked. Like, it was like everything was smooth, but then I came to look at it. Now it's my first time looking at it, and I was like, and someone goes, oh, there's only 1.5 baths. Like, there's 2.5, but one is Irina was going to live there. We already had planned for that. And I was like, oh, I didn't think about that. So then we had to add a bathroom. I'm like, what do we do? So I was like, what did I do? I need to back out of this. Like, everything. Like, then we were up in the extra room. You'll see it. And then the garage, someone opens it, and it's so loud. And I have a panic attack. I was like, how are we going to have a house where all the women are sleeping in a room that the whole house shakes with the garage? Well, little did I know you could change the garage door. We put them, but it was like little things like this. Like, I'm like, God, clearly I wasn't hearing from you. This is something like this is crazy, because it encroaches on you. You take a step of faith, and then God wants to see, do you believe me? Do you believe that I can do this? And so now we're at the point, so then we open registrations, and I think it's going to fill up. So our dream is for, which by the way, it hasn't yet, but it will. But everyone's like, slow down, Lina, you're so impatient. but our dream is for women. Right now it's just women, and men have asked. Eventually I have a vision for some things we can do for men, but for now it's a woman's house where women can come to be with the Lord. What I described is place to connect with God. I'm so convinced that is our deepest need in Christianity as a whole, but more so in the West. We are not meeting with God. We're so overtaken with culture. We're so social media. It's a force. Like, even people who go, well, I'm not really into it. No, we all are. We have to fight it. We have to fight it. And you can do it in your house. It's just harder. And so, and it's habits. It's not even about it's harder. It's habits. Sometimes you just need a jump start. It's like, and it's stuff you have to tend to regularly. Today I was weeding for 2 hours in the heat. And it's little weeds, but if you don't weed them now, when they're little, in a month, if you come to my house, I'll be in a forest. I heard when the house was rehabbed, before I moved in, they changed the house. It used to be, like, people couldn't see the house because there were so many weeds. And the guy who did this job before I bought it, he came in, and all the neighbors told me about how bad it looked. It started with little weeds. And I think the place that I envisioned is a place where women can come and weed, where God can weed their hearts so that they can get to a place where the soil of the Word can grow again. Now, we're opening it, of course, to individuals. That's our heart, but then also to teams, a place where people can connect, with each other, with God first, and with each other. And so we think it's a great place for small groups. we had a lot of vision and ideas for, what's left now, so we finished the house, you'll see in a minute, we're gonna give you a tour. The patio we created, this used to be a lane for horses to go through, so there's not even a piece of crap anymore. I don't know how to say this anyway, but God has taken the ashes and turned them to beauty. That's like, you can actually eat on this apple tree. But the barn, we have a vision to change the barn. That might have to wait a few months. We're gonna see what God does. Really, our hope is to raise money to change the barn into a teaching space. And so we have the architect, the pictures, I have the contractor. I thought that we could do it all now. I hope, and we'll see, I get the final numbers, but it's gonna be in the vicinity of 100,000, which I know sometimes you're like, what? But costs for construction are very high right now. Anybody who's doing work is aware of that. Wood especially, but we'll see. I think that's our vision for this, because when we finish this, so the reason I think the barn is so critical for twofold. One is for us to hold mini events, 50 to 75 people at foresee. So again, we have regular neighbors here. I know they all think we're a cult moving in. I've had to kind of introduce the idea of a retreat very every time I tell them it's a retreat, I want to chase it by saying, but I'm a doctor in the community, I'm normal. I don't want them to think we're some Jim Jones thing. But I don't know, maybe they do, maybe they're all worried because it's all the cars. This is the first time we have a lot of cars here. But by and large, I think the accessibility to O'Hare, the fact that, I don't know what's going on down the street, but that's your friend, Jeannie. That's her house. We have neighbors that apparently we found out Jeannie's friend lives down this way, one house over. So God has put people already that we know in the area. But the idea again is to do small events, maybe worship nights. We want to work with basically, we just want to be a safe place where women can come. We have a counselor who I knew from Harvest who's going to be volunteering for us that can also do some work with people. This isn't for, people are like, oh, I've had a lot of people email and be like, well, I know someone who's really messed up, they need a place to heal. Yes, we welcome that, but it's also for people like us who might not have thought we were really messed up, but who have over the years accumulated weeds and junk, and you just need a place to breathe. And so I call it a semi-silent retreat for individuals, or again, the group thing. But so the idea of rehabbing this barn is to give them a space. Again, we have long winters. I know we don't feel it now because it's summer, but after November through about March, I think to just stay in the house, people will still take advantage of the outdoors. There's a lot of cold lovers, I found out tonight, but I'm not one of them. I like the heat. But to have an option to come to, sort of a place to leave the house. We've created nooks in the house. We're trying to think through so people aren't in each other's hair. But really, this space is meant to be a future teaching spot where we can just have us recording like here. We found out we can do this. You're on YouTube. You're watching live. We think we can create quality stuff. Right now we're on, the Lord has blessed us. So remember, we started off with the teaching ministry. The Lord has blessed us. We have 4 studies on Right Now Media, 4 studies on New Version. We've got 21 Bible studies, all available. I think only James is one we sell. Everything else is free. But by and large, they're all on our app or on our website. We've got, of course, my 4th book coming out. So God has done above and beyond, according to the power at work in Him, in the area of Bible teaching. And for COVID, we're speaking to we estimated over 10,000 women a year we're reaching. The radio ministry's grown. God has grown something that I never would have predicted. But I think, honestly, sometimes I think about it and I think He's just been setting the foundation. So I'll close with, before we go on the tour, with a story from Scripture. I thought, what symbolizes what we do the most? And I hate to be so stereotypical, but really, because part of tonight is sort of give you an idea where we came from, but also where we're going to go. And the closest story is the feeding of the 5,000. And I'm going to tell you why I think this is such let me read the story and then I'll give you a couple thoughts. In John 6, every gospel has a story. It's one of the best stories in Scripture. It says, after this, Jesus went away to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias. And a large crowd was following Him because they saw the signs that He was doing on the sick. Jesus went up on the mountains and there He sat down with His disciples. Now the Passover, the feast of the Jews, was at hand. Lifting up His eyes then and seeing that a large crowd was coming toward Him, Jesus said to Philip, where are we to buy bread so that these people may eat? He said this to test Him, for He Himself knew what He would do. Philip answered Him, 200 denarii worth of bread would not be enough for each of them to get a little. One of His disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to Him, there is a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what are they for so many people? Jesus said, have the people sit down. Now there was much grass in the place, so the men sat down, about 5,000 in number. Jesus then took the loaves, and when He had given thanks, He distributed them to those who who were seated. So also the fish, as much as they wanted. And when they had eaten their fill, he told his disciples, gather up the leftover fragments that nothing be lost. So they gathered them up and filled 12 baskets with fragments from the 5 barley loaves left by those who had eaten. When the people saw the sign he had done, they said, this is indeed the prophet who is to come into the world. In the Mark rendition, after he said, how many loaves do you have? Go and see. When they had found out, they say 5 and 2 fish. Then he commanded all to sit in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups by hundreds and by 50s. And a couple of observations about that story. First of all, there was no altar call. There was no big ask. There was no music in the background to move the hearts of the people. There was nothing. There was just all of a sudden they had a need, and there was a kid that said maybe God could use this little scrambled meal in my hand. And it was probably hot like here because it's humid and hot in that area. And so this is sort of symbolic to how this ministry has come to where we're at. We honestly, we're not great at asks. Honestly, like I think about like even the vision nights, like, you know, we're like, oh, it'd be great to raise $100,000. Yeah, of course. But like honestly, like I stink at asks, and also like I don't want to be good at it because I really believe in the model that like God, it's your thing. Like I don't want to be passive, but like God, you have to provide if it's your thing, and whether you use me or you use others. And so somewhere there's a little kid going, maybe you could use my little fish. We get one donation every month. It's $5. It's only $5 donation, but it moves me. And so he used to cynically chuckle, like, so cute. You know, for that person, he's given his loaves and the fish, and he's part of the work that's happening. So that we're going to go to heaven. He's going to see all the Syrian refugees, thousands now, Syrian refugees, thousands of Lebanese, thousands of women here in the United States that have benefited from the ministry. And this person's going to stand in line and go, man, I'm part of this story. This is incredible to me that God does that. And so I think about that idea that somewhere there's a boy who sees a need and jumps in. I love that. And then I also see how God just wants what's in our hands. And so I feel like that's been in my schooling ministry. Like I wish I had more. I wish sometimes, and like the disciples, I fluctuate between this feeling of, God, there's so much we could do. Like, how are we ever going to make a dent in this story? And yet, God's like, just show up. Just show up. And then see what I do with it. And in fact, he just prompted them. Like, he knew already they had nothing. He wasn't like, oh, I'm asking you because he was like, it says in the Luke passage, the John passage that I read, it's like, Jesus asked them, he says, because he himself knew what he would do. So it was like an invitation for them to come and see the greatness of God. And the end result wasn't just that the people fed. The end result was that the people glorified this Jesus who is God. Really, again, we always get distracted by the miracle, but every miracle that's happened, the awe of the miracle is never a miracle. When he stopped the waves and the winds, it was awesome. But what was really awesome is that they saw that he was God. When he fed the disciples, they had 12 baskets of silver. What was really awesome is they're like, man, this is not just a huge. You see it? We get so caught up with the need when God's like, okay, the need is done. Like I can do this 1,000,000 times over, but I'm God. He's saying, I'm God, and that's the awe thing about the story of God. And so, and the last thing, and I think this is like in that Mark passage that I read, is he made us sit in hundreds and fifties. And I remember once hearing Christine Kane teach on that years ago, and she made that point, and it stuck with me. Like, why did he have them sit like that? Like, why does your gospel say that? Well, because there was a system that needed to be established. And I think that's so true. And I think about our time in ministry, our organization, and so much of what we've done has been to make rows of 100, make rows of 50, so that the work can be, if they haven't sat in order, have you ever tried, I've been in the ministry field, have you ever tried to give out vitamins at the end of the day when you're like done with seeing patients and everyone comes after you and you're like, no, you need order, stand in line. I mean, if you've worked children's ministry, you can understand that. You've got the popsicles at the end of the day. All the kids are on, you're like, I'm not giving them out that way, stand in line. And God wants us to build systems, and I think even in 2010 when the 501c3 started, even in later on when the Lebanese work, now we organize our donor relations. Everything we're doing is in order now. I really feel like our house is in order. And so I think we're in a place where God can take those little pieces of bread and fishes and multiply them into feeding more people than we can imagine. So rather than we're overwhelmed with the need, we can come to a place where we can be in awe of the one who can meet the need. And the beauty is that you watching, you sitting, the others who cannot come tonight, who are part of this story, there's hundreds, almost thousands now who have partnered with us. we're like the little boy with a couple of fish and a couple of pieces of bread saying, God, please use us. And he does. And so that's it. That's the story of the Lord. In a year, God willing, we'll have this done. We'll be able to host an event where we actually do teaching. Down the road, I think it'd be nice to build little like meeting houses, like individuals. Right now, there's shared rooms, which I like communal space. I don't think that's a problem. Although I always like to get my own hotel room, but I think there's healthy and learning to live in community again. We've become too isolated and independent. But down the road, I think there's space enough in the 5 acres to build little, like whether it's A-frames or just sort of some creative way to create individual places for people who might not be as we might need that privacy more. So there's a lot that can still be done. We've talked about having horses, although I think I've heard that's financially not prudent. And we are really good stewards. We try to be. Diana's our money person, and if she is impeccable when it comes to budgeting and spending, to the point where I'm like, how are we born from the same womb as my mother? Because as far as the East is from the West, so far is Lina from Diana, financially speaking. But it is funny. It is good. It's a good thing. I'm so thankful to the way that she just accounts and keeps everybody in order. And so it's a blessing. And so I want us to, if you don't mind, we're going to take the video camera with us and show you the house. And then Irina has her guitar. We can come back and sing worship songs, or you can go home, whatever you want to prefer to do. But we thought we could just do a little tour. You guys interested? Yeah. Up for that? If you don't want it, you don't have to. There's baklava, but I think there's a good time to give you a little tour. I think it's time this so that those who are watching can enjoy it too. Yeah. All right. So maybe show them, Irina, a little bit here. Beautiful time of, and today's been very humid, but like a beautiful, this is my favorite time of the day actually. The sun sets over there. And in the fall, you're going to get beautiful October skies. Our neighbor has horses. It's a blessing because I don't have to have a horse. And if you really want to look at one, he usually comes out here. I don't see him now. And in fact, both sides over there, I heard a hee-haw earlier. But yeah, so let's, you guys, if you want to throw your place, there's trash is here. Just dump them out and then we'll head this way. Oh, be careful. Watch your steps coming out. Yeah. Irina, by the way, show them the beautiful garden on the way over. She cleaned it up. It looks so good. I'm so impressed. I was, yesterday it looked a little shady. It was like overgrown.
We have some little cherry tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, and the little herbs and flowers here. There's the barn, which we believe is going to be our teaching place. On the left side, Lina.
Let me get some more lights on when you guys come in. Oh, it's so good in here. There's more. Oh, here. Yeah, so give you a little idea. So this room was one of the projects. Did they hook up the lights here? Remind me, I can't.
Not yet.
Not yet, yeah. So we're finishing up. This was just, so all this room used to be a 3-season room. Wait for you guys to come in. So this is going to be our main dining area. And now we put in the windows and then we established the HVAC system. So that was sort of the big need in this room. Repainted and stuff. But they were using it as sort of a semi-sunroom, so they just have like screened windows. And so, it now is a year-round room and people will basically have all their rooms here. We kept the dividing doors because if people want quiet, we could shut the doors. And so initially I was going to open it up, but for now we're kind of, remember the semi-silent idea, so that in the eating space is sort of a talk space and community space. And so we're looking forward to filling this room up. And so we're going to leave that to the first retreaters. We didn't use it tonight because we thought it was beautiful outside. Well, we can still use it, but yeah, let's keep going. And then our living room here. I think those pictures have shown up on Facebook, here and there, social media quite a bit. But basically the idea, again, we wanted to create sort of spaces where, different little corners in the house, a little corner by Daisy over there, there's a little areas here, fire learn, and where people can be, quietly reading the Bible or talking, to each other. Just sort of a nice, very comfortable. Y'all feel free to try. This chair is probably the most comfortable, but y'all can check them all out. I know, yeah. So, and then we'll keep turning around here. The one thing we haven't yet shown when we go upstairs is the upstairs room. This was a formal dining space, but it would be more like a journaling. Down the road, we actually inherited a couple of items, so this was inherited, which we thought fit well. But down the road, just some other opportunities to put little corner spots to again read and be. Basically, you can do some games here down the road. Whatever, just be creative in that. The kitchen, little kitchen here. We're going to be catering. We have a caterer who's already on board, and so a fully, beautiful kitchen, as you can see. And so she's going to be doing the meals, which are included in the price of the retreat. And so I think this will be a nice bonus for people, just because they don't have to worry about food. And so you can see, those of you who love to cook, this is. I like pictures to be just like that. Clean and unused. Our basement, we can go later. Anyway, half bath here. Y'all can take a look. Irina can show you that. And then we just finished, Irina's doing the full tour. No half tours today. All right. Just finished everything up in the. Come on up. We'll make our way to all the rooms, but. So this gives you an idea, again, even though, feel free to wander around, so there's 3 main rooms, but this room is the front of the first room. So again, it's community, but there's enough space and private, it's not cramped at all. We felt tried to make use of the space, a little bathroom here that could be shared by a couple of the rooms. You can feel free to look around. See, Irina's room we're skipping. I told her this is no need to tour that. But we'll make our way towards the big room in a second. Another room here, just because spacious feel. Decor, and I sort of have this. I want a minimal. Again, come on in. Don't be afraid, guys. Come on, take a look here. And so very the look is intentional, sort of a minimalist. Not much like the old retreat house that we saw, right? I spoke at a place that she invited me with a retreat house, but it was grand. I mean, this is like a mansion compared to it. But and then we'll make our way to. We're working still on fence issues in the other rooms. This week. So this was our biggest expense so far. Well, the patio too, but we created this. So this was just like a room. They just had a bed here. I don't know what they were using it for, and that led to the bonus room. And we put a bathroom, and you see it's beautiful. Feel free to. It's like we're still in the middle of. We're putting it's top notch, right? I mean, honestly, I felt like I wanted to do something where people would be so happy, and so the door's coming still. That's the last one. And then here's our big room. This is the room where the garage used to shake, and now it's seamless. So we're, right now we're on low numbers, so we can move this for more space, but we've had some nines, So this is so when you somebody said Madeline, the orphan thing, I was comparing it to, but again, I think the intentionality and the look is. I saw on Airbnb right around the time I was thinking, what am I going to do with the beds? I look very similar to this. So you get a lot of ideas, but the idea was that it would be very simple and clean and a place that I would want to stay. Honestly, I just felt like this was it. They left us this closet, which is nice for storage for people. So we're working through still little things where people are they're 2-night stays, and so again, we don't anticipate that people are going to move out completely, but just to make it more user friendly, we're looking if anybody has ideas for little benches that are affordable, let me know. But basically, you want to keep it very, again, simple and clean to suit the mood of the house, which is sort of just simplicity, I think, is the idea of you come, you rest, you can focus. And so that's it. So this room, but you can see even the details of how God works things out. You think about a 3-bedroom house, wouldn't it come, if we had a smaller room, it would be 9. The idea that we have this bonus room. When I came to see the house, it felt like every detail was more that little dining room area. There was a 3, we could never fit 20 people in a regular dining space, but we didn't have to build it out. It was already there. Every little detail, feel free to move in so that those who are haven't had a chance to see this room. But yeah, like I think we're still final. There's some touches we're finishing up, like the venting they're working on in this room to make it when it's hot, which I know was never a problem in Chicago, but we've had a horribly hot summer, and so we're just working on finishing up some things like that. But basically, you can see the house is in great shape already and ready to welcome people. I think next week we've got a couple of friends coming to. There's a friend of mine speaking in Chicago, so she'll be our pilot to see how this goes. And then our formal registration starts in a couple of weeks. And we already have a lot of people who are planning to be here, considering the time of year, you know, and the novelty of this. And a lot of people looking at the spring to bring groups. And so we're excited. I mean, we you know, we're working through, we're learning all of this as we go, but we really, you know, we think it's going to be great. So we're excited about it. But I hope you guys I hope you guys see, you know, I think you catch the excitement. I mean, every time I come to this house, I'm always like, God, this is incredible. Like, it's just, we didn't even paint the wall. Like, we did, I mean, the colors, like, we didn't paint this room, actually, it was good. But the point is, we didn't have to get new paint. Like, they had already picked colors that are just so, it was in great shape. And the price was great. Like, you see God's hand over every little detail. Even the way the kitchen is, it's not an open concept, which now it's so popular, but for intent and purposes of how we're doing the house, it gives privacy to the caterer. I mean, every little detail. We haven't finished the basement, so there's potential for that down the road. The basement is in good shape, but it's like, so we've got a couple of beds there for some groups, if they have bigger groups and they want to bring the 20 and we only have 16 beds. So we actually have space to accommodate, except, you know, if they're willing, they'll be able to use. But so we're trying to creatively think how we can make this very user-friendly for church groups, of smaller groups, small groups, friends, individuals, again, and keep it at a reasonable price. And we think it's competitively, I mean, it's reasonably priced, but I don't know. I mean, we're creating a scholarship fund, and that's going to help people too, because I think there are a lot of people like, man, I want to come, I can't afford it, so we're creating it so that people can pay forward or put towards that, and we foresee that that will also help. And I think, you know, only the Lord knows. Again, some of this is a step of faith. I mean, you kind of mentally see it, but like I go back to sort of where we started this conversation back in, you know, 2000, I thought I was going to teach the Bible in a church the rest of my life. Like, I never thought we'd be doing what we're doing in the Middle East. I never thought we'd have a retreat house. I never thought any of those things that were, I never thought to be on the radio. Like, you just don't know what God will do. And so, He's incredible. I mean, I think the Lord is, and you know, the story is true. Every one of us can go around and tell our stories of how God has done above and beyond. And by the way, I mean, don't be fooled. I mean, Jeannie, you were at church 2 weeks ago. Like, I gave you the side of the story. I mean, everybody has that, you know, like I'm thinking, like, I hear myself, and then I think some people would listen and go, oh, you don't even know, like, that sounds great for you, but no, you guys don't get it. Like, I get in slumps a lot. Like, it's not, I mean, the steps of faith doesn't mean that you go in. I mean, our message is hope. Believe me, Satan fights us in the area of hope all the stinking time. I want to give up and quit more than I can tell you guys. I get weighed down. I do worry, I mean, about how we're going to pay for things, how we're going to grow the ministry, if we're wasting our time. $300, you know, royalty check after writing 4 books. Like, I mean, there are sides of this that you're like, really, God? Like, this is what you had in mind? But then you step back and a vision like this, and when you tell the story, you kind of go, whoa, what is wrong with me? Like, God, you're incredible. How did I not see it? But that's the battle in Christian life, is constantly to see things from His perspective. And by the way, that's why I think the idea of community, you know, getting people together to review those things, why I think the local church is so important. I think friendships in the faith is so important, because that's the opportunity for us to review those stories. And then to see, like we're talking today, I was talking with you, Scott, about the lights. We're going to hang lights over the barn. Peggy and you guys, like, I have so many jobs on my mental to-do list for you guys. Like you're going to regret through the day that you offered your services so willingly. I'm like, but you know, the truth is, like, we don't have to do it all by ourselves. We've got a community of people who see what we're doing and who want to be part of what God's doing. So, I mean, if you later are watching this and we have a ton of women who have jumped in to say, man, we want to help. We can do gardening, we can do housework, and we're just really, we think this will be an opportunity for people to community, you know, gather in community and see God build something that's bigger than us, which is what I think ultimately we all yearn for deep in our souls, is to I've always had this sense in my life, God, I want you to build a ministry that is not explained by anything but you. I just want it to be where people go, oh yeah, Lina, she had money, or Lina, she had gifts. No, I want it to be like, it's so outside of what I could do that this isn't about me at all. This is just like all you. And so far, I can tell you, like, I mean, it's all God. And so, I mean, I'm very, very grateful for that, as hard as it can be sometimes to ask for that story. So it's also, the reward is worth it. So that's it.
Beautiful.
So anyway, I think we'll end the live video now, and then we can just come back to real life here, because everyone's been very quiet and listening. Diana, not even a question back there. So should I say bye? Did you already take me off?
No?
Oh, bye guys. It's been great having you. Thank you for tuning in. We'll have more for you guys later, but just grateful that you guys took the time, wherever you are in.
And what is the website address?
The website is thehoperanch.org. Thehoperanch.org. And we'll talk more about it in the weeks to come. We're going to focus on the book launch here in a couple of weeks, but we're going to be, kind of telling more about this too in the weeks to come. So thank you all. Have a good night.